I'm Mark.
And I'm Josh.
And this is Alter Ego Comics TV for the week of January 27th, 2016. We are here to talk about comics that are awesome, the best of the new stuff that came out this week, to hopefully be your guides on discovering maybe something you didn't think about picking up, or confirming that you should pick up something. So, also this week, there's been a lot of buzz on the internet over the last week or so, and in some cases longer, about Marvel and DC starting and stopping and relaunching and rebirthing and afterbirthing and all kinds of crazy stuff. I think at the end of the day, Josh and I would both agree that comics are about the stories. If the stories are good, it really shouldn't matter what number is on the cover. I know lots of people feel differently about that, but we wanted to kind of jump into that a little bit this week by giving a top 5 list of our top 5 alternatives to comics being published by Marvel and DC. So we'll get to that towards the end of the episode. But we'll start things off with my pick of the week, Old Man Logan Number One, written by Jeff Lemire, artwork by Andrea Sorrentino. And this spins out of the Secret Wars Old Man Logan series, which was a slight follow-up to the was it Ben?
Mark Miller.
Mark Miller, Steve McNiven.
Did the ending
Old
make
Man
you want to
Logan.
cry? Then it's Mark Miller.
Yeah, Mark Miller, Steve McNiven, Old Man Logan series that was published in 2008. 7-ish. Great story, by the way. The original Old Man Logan. We also enjoyed the Secret Wars Old Man Logan series. To cut to the chase, because I'm fairly long-winded, as you know. In the mainstream Marvel universe, Wolverine is dead. We have Laura, what's-her-face? X-23 is running around as the all-new Wolverine. And now we have Old Man Logan, who is from
Kinney.
I think it's Kinney, yes. Old Man Logan, who is an obviously older version of Logan. He doesn't go by Wolverine, and he's seen a lot of bad stuff and done a lot of bad stuff and thought he had made his peace with the world, and now he's found himself in an earlier time period in a world that's very familiar to him, yet very different, and that's what this story is about. Wolverine has always been one of my favorite characters. He's gone through a lot of ups and downs over the years, but the character has grown with the writers that are attached to him. I think Mark Miller took him in an interesting direction. Some other people whose names I can't think of right now. Really, Miller did Enemy of the State, too. So Mark Miller really did a lot of great stuff with Wolverine. Towards the end of his Marvel Universe time, he was kind of a mentor. He had kind of mellowed a lot, especially in Jason Aaron's Wolverine and the X-Men. That's another good one. So this version of Wolverine is even different from all of those, and I'm not sure if everyone will like it. It's kind of a throwback to the guy who's the best there is at what he does, and what he does isn't very nice, and he is going to make damn sure that the life that he lived through doesn't happen again. And not everybody may be on board with that, including several of the Marvel Universe heroes. So Old Man Logan, Wolverine is back in the mainstream Marvel Universe. Older, perhaps wiser, and definitely angrier than the Wolverine that recently departed. I really dug it. Lemire is also writing Extraordinary X-Men, which features Old Man Logan. And Sorrentino did the artwork on the Brian Michael Bendis penned Secret Wars Old Man Logan. So lots of familiar threads in here, but really, really solid book this week.
Yeah, I was surprised how much like Old Man Logan. I mean, it's very much an Old Man Logan story. I was sort of concerned it would just be, here's an old Wolverine in the Marvel Universe, but it's definitely driven by the events of that.
Oh, and if you have not read the original Old Man Logan, I know it's getting very confusing at this point because we have 3 things called Old Man Logan. The original story by Mark Miller and Steve McNiven is one of our best-selling graphic novels. It's a must-read for Wolverine fans. It's almost a must-read for Marvel fans because it features a lot of Marvel heroes and villains and a possible future for the Marvel Universe. So pick that up, and then you'll be able to dive into this. Even if you don't read it, you'll get the gist of it, but you'll feel a lot better about yourself if you read the original material.
Yeah, and I also found the dichotomy interesting. You know, when Wolverine was first on the scene, he didn't remember where he was, but he was sort of a killer who had done horrible things and was kind of tortured by that. So he was a killer who was tortured by not having his memories. And now it's the same situation, except that he's tortured by the fact that he does remember all these things that happened. So very cool. Very cool book. Next up for me, we've got my pick of the week is Cry Havoc from Image.
Cry Havoc! Sorry.
Written by... or
Shakespeare, but
right.
When I say it that way, there's only one person, General Chang, Star Trek VI.
Written by Cy Spurrier, drawn by Ryan Kelly. Is that right? Pictures by Ryan Kelly. The tagline for this is Cry Havoc is not about a lesbian werewolf who goes to war, except it kind of is. And that's actually a pretty succinct description. You've got a woman who's working as kind of a musician, a busker in London, gets attacked and infected by some sort of creature with a werewolf-like quality, and now she has powers and turns into things. She joins up with a elite military unit composed of other people who have powers and darkness in them from some source, and they go to the Middle East and try to get the demons out of them and also fight the good fight. Maybe the good fight, maybe not the good fight. It's always hard to tell. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I really like the way the story is structured. It's told sort of Pulp Fiction style with chunks in the present, chunks in the past, chunks in the future. And it was very cool. The relationships are good. They actually did a little more character and relationship work than you expect in a book about werewolves going to war, which I enjoyed. There's a lot of kind of quiet, interesting stuff about the character. And yeah, it was a good checkout. Lots of fun.
Yeah, definitely a character-driven story. Fans of BPRD might like this. It's a little more, R-rated, Quentin Tarantino-esque than Mignola's BPRD, but some similarities. I continue to be head over heels in love with Superman, Lois and Clark by Dan Jurgens and Lee Weeks, and there's also another artist on this week, which makes me sad, Marco Santucci, because I love Lee Weeks and I want him to draw this series forever. There's not a lot to say except if you're looking for one of the best DC comics right now, my money's on this. A lot of it is because the Superman and Lois that are featured in this are our Superman and Lois. They're Superman and Lois from the pre-New 52 DC universe who have wound up in the New 52 universe, and they're living in secret. And in this issue, for their there's a kind of a flashback for their anniversary. They check out the metropolis of the New 52 universe, and it's fun. It's fun. It does have some heavy moments to it, but I want to read about this Superman. Josh will follow up after this about the current Superman, which is not a bad book, but for old people like me, who grew up with the Crisis DC universe, this is the Superman book I want to read. So Superman, Lois and Clark is perfect for old school Superman fans, and if you just want to read a great Superman book, there it is.
And in the New 52 version of Superman, we've got Superman 48, written by Gene Luen Yang, drawn by Howard Porter and Ardian Syaf. And if you've been following Superman or any of the core DC stuff at all, you know that he is currently depowered. Recently in Superman Wonder Woman, I think. He went to Olympus with Diana, and they sort of healed him of his injuries, but as a result, he was basically made wholly mortal, at least temporarily, until the effects wore off. But he's developed the theory that the reason his powers are gone, or the reason his powers were diminished, is something's happened to the top layer of his skin, and it's preventing the rest of his body from absorbing the solar radiation, which is the source of his powers, under Earth's yellow sun. And his solution is chemotherapy. And in Kryptonian's case, the thing that kills off the cells to allow the other cells to regrow is kryptonite. So he teams up with everyone's favorite agent, Steve Trevor. Yeah, Steve Trevor. Sorry.
Not Steve Gutenberg.
Steve Austin, for some reason, popped into my head. I'm like, that's not right. He's $1 million.
The wrestler or the $1 Million Man?
The $1 Million Man. I don't know. That Stone Cold
$1
guy.
Million Man, 10 DBS? Yeah. No. We're off on a tangent.
Excuse us. But yeah, it was just a fun team up. I really like the dynamic. At this point, Superman and Wonder Woman are broken up. So you've got two of Wonder Woman's ex-boyfriends teaming up together, potentially getting themselves or each other killed. And it was just great. It's a good escalation of the story that's been going on. A lot of truth is sort of seeing Superman in this world where his name is public and he's semi-powered. So an actual episode where there's a direct objective and they're moving towards it at great cost to themselves is just very cool.
And speaking of direct objectives, I mean, in Lois and Clark, and we know that at some point this Superman and that Superman are going to meet because there have been solicitations and previews for an upcoming issue of either Superman or Action Comics, I don't remember, that features both of these characters on the cover. Also, Superman and Lois have a son named John in this who's probably 9 or 10. And there's a scene in this one where they go to Metropolis or they go to a big city and the headline in the paper is Superman's identity revealed as Clark Kent. So their son knows that something's going on, and that just creates for good storytelling. Good stuff. This one is hardly worth mentioning just because we talk about it all the time, and it is almost our number one bestseller in the shop. Saga number 33 is out this week. Just get it, please. If you're not reading Saga, it's not too late. Don't be put off by the fact that it's 33 issues in. Saga is month in, month out. One of the best comics being published, and it's just such a great story. This one had a lot more content to it than some of the more recent issues. We get to explore a couple minor characters that we haven't seen in a while and how they fit in with what's going on in the Saga universe. Actually, this is a pretty pivotal issue. There's a lot of stuff that happens in here that I think we're going to see ramifications of, but also tie up some loose ends that were left hanging in the past. So, Saga continues to be awesome. Just read it, buy it, please.
And Vaughn's great at that, having a broad cast where you can have different characters, and you're not upset that you're missing Marco and Elena because the other characters are so interesting and still related to the main Marco and Elena plot. New from Valiant this week, we've got Faith number 1, written by Jody Hauser with art by Francis Portela, and another sequence, a dream sequence kind of thing, by Marguerite Sauvage. And Faith spins out of the stuff in Harbinger and a little bit in Unity. But if you've never read any of that, you don't need to. Basically, a woman with superpowers has broken up with both her boyfriend, who's a superhero, and her superhero team, and is trying to live a different life, still being a superhero, creating a fake identity or a alter ego for the first time, and living in LA. And this is really fun. The character is a huge nerd. So there's very few direct references to our world's pop culture, but there's a lot of analogs that are very fun. Lots of cool little jokes. There's a whole sequence about actors named Chris playing superheroes, and just a lot of fun. So even if you have no background in the Faith character from Valiant, I thought it was cool. A female-driven character that is actually plot-oriented and cool.
The Valiant universe is a good alternative, and that kind of is a good segue into what we're going to talk about here today in our top 5. Love them, hate them, fed up, not fed up. Marvel and DC are the kings of the comic world, and they're telling some great stories, but they're also kind of having some misfires and churning stuff out because they're a corporation, because they're owned by mega companies, Disney and Warner Brothers. I would be willing to bet that from an editorial standpoint and a creative standpoint, there are limitations on books published by Marvel and DC that you're not going to see with creator-owned work and comics published by other companies. The Valiant universe is a great alternative, I think, if you like superhero books, to check out some different stuff. That some of these characters have histories at other publishers. Valiant, well, I shouldn't say other publishers. Valiant has been published several times. This current incarnation gives us fresh takes that you don't really need to know anything moving forward. But anyway, so what we try to do is find books that if you like comic A at Marvel or DC, then try comic B at a different publisher. And I'll start with Invincible, which is published by Image Comics, written by The Walking Dead's Robert Kirkman. And if you like Spider-Man, if you like Superman, then you will like Invincible. It's about a teenage boy who has the troubles of a Peter Parker, but has the powers of a Superman. And he's of alien origin. This book has been published for many, many years. There are, 20 volumes, ballpark, 15, 20 volumes available, and it's still being published. Great stuff if you want to read a superhero book by the guy that writes The Walking Dead. And as I said, I don't think it's a stretch to say that if you like Spider-Man or Superman, that you'll like Invincible as well. You should check it out.
First up for me, if you like Deadpool, and who doesn't right now? Apparently, it's a big thing. Your great checkout would be Quantum and Woody from Valiant. It's got the same irreverent humor, the same innuendos and jokes, the same superhero antics that don't always go the way they're intended, and there's a goat who may or may not be their father.
There you go. If you are reading Scott Snyder's run on Batman, and he's been writing incredible stuff on the character since the New 52, and even prior to that, his work on Detective was pretty incredible too. Definitely check out his creator-owned book over at Vertigo, American Vampire. This is written by Snyder with artwork by Raphael Albuquerque, and the first story arc has backup stories written by the one and only Stephen King. So this is definitely a horror book, but it's not like super heavy on the horror. You know, it's a book about vampires, so there's going to be horror, but it's a character-driven book, and it's been published for many, many years. Again, 7 volumes, I think, available right now. And it's just great watching these characters evolve. I mean, they're vampires. They're living until they get beheaded or staked through the heart. So this book starts in the 1920s. Actually, in the Stephen King stuff takes place in the late 1800s, and they're currently in the 1960s, 70s-ish. So if you like Snyder's writing style, if you like his characterizations on Batman, give American Vampire a try. I would be surprised if you didn't enjoy it.
And I think the best sell for that is when Snyder was developing the series and getting ready to publish it, he sent the script to Stephen King to get a pull quote, to get an endorsement kind of thing. And King's like, no, I want to write some of this. So when Stephen King wants it on your book, it's good.
It's good, yeah.
And I'm going to kind of cheat a little bit. We were just talking about how great Mark Millar is, or Millar, however you're supposed to say his name. If you're not familiar with the name directly, he wrote Marvel's Civil War, he wrote Superman, Red Sun, he wrote Wolverine, well, a couple good Wolverine stories we just talked about.
Enemy of the State.
And he has indie books that, if you like those, you would also enjoy them. Currently, if you like Superman, his Huck is amazing. It's only got a few issues out, but it's very good. If you like, also if you like Superman, he did a book called Superior that is it's a different take on someone with those powers. It's actually a little more like Shazam than Superman, really, because you have a regular form. But Kick-Ass, Nemesis is great. Nemesis is like, what if the master planner that Batman was the bad guy? And it's just amazing. So yeah, Mark Millar has work on both sides of the aisle, and it's absolutely worth checking out.
I'm also going to cheat on my last one, just because I couldn't come up with a good correlation, but Boom Studios is publishing a book called Lumberjanes, which is very popular. Kind of a Buffy the Vampire Slayer without as much sex and violence, about a group of teenage girls that go to summer camp and they bond and they have supernatural adventures in the woods and other things. So Brian K. Vaughan, who we spoke about earlier with Saga, is currently writing a book called Paper Girls over at Image Comics. Issue number 4 is the current issue. And it's, I'd also kind of compare this to Runaways.
Yeah, that's the best.
It dawned on me earlier when you were talking and then I forgot it. But if you liked Marvel's Runaways, check out Paper Girls by Brian K. Vaughan. First off, I don't know why you wouldn't check out a new series by Brian K. Vaughan. But it's about 4 teenage girls that are all paper girls. They deliver newspapers in the 1980s. I want to say it's 86, 87-ish, and they all meet up by chance on Halloween night or the morning after Halloween, and we've got a little bit of a War of the Worlds situation that may have happened where there are aliens, there are people dead and missing, and these 4 girls bond together to survive and try and solve this mystery of what's going on. Only 4 issues in, but really top-notch stuff, and I assume and I believe that Vaughn has kind of a long-term plan with this. So get in on the ground floor now, and if you like Lumberjanes and or Runaways, this is the book for you. That's just a handful. So we
can do this all day. If you like Star Wars, read Saga.
It's kind of our job to do this when people walk into the shop. But I would be curious, do you have any things that you'd like to share in the comments? If you like Marvel or DC character fill in the blank, then try this over at Publisher X. So hopefully we can educate each other and spread the word about creator-owned or indie comics. Not necessarily to replace what people are buying and reading over at Marvel and DC, but it makes me sad that I'm reading about people bailing out of comics completely because they're fed up with Marvel and DC. And comics is much bigger than Marvel and DC. Don't get me wrong, I love Marvel and DC comics when they're done well. But really, if you're on the fence, if you need someone to talk to, 1-800-alter-ego-count. That's not it. We want to talk you down off that fence. But explore some of this creator-owned stuff that's out there, because that is only going to continue to grow. The market share is going to continue to grow as more people discover this stuff where the creators have complete control, where they can do whatever they want with these characters. And you're also supporting, independent craftspeople. And that's, again, not to detract from writers and artists that work for the big two, because you got to feed the family and pay the bills. But, creators pour their blood, sweat, and tears into their creations. And when you're creating for a mega company, it's a little bit different than when you're creating for yourself. Bottom line, it's all good. But share your recommendations. I'm really interested to see those, and let's educate each other, as I said, as to what we should be checking out. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, please give us a thumbs up on YouTube and share it, tweet it, put it on your Facebook page, do whatever to get more people checking out comics that are awesome. Thanks for watching. We will see you next time.